Hey everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to look at a prelim that I did with 5-color creativity. Now it's a pretty traditional 5-color creativity deck, and the prelim went really well. What I want to do is walk you through the games, kind of walk you through my decisions, whether they were bad decisions, good decisions, any like blunders that I made. I think it's important to see the rawness of Magic in videos like this, the bad, good, and the ugly. So let's do that together, first by looking at the deck that I played with really quick. So this is the deck that I played with. It's a pretty stock list of 5-color creativity. I think the one difference is I did not play Fire and Ice. I think Fire and Ice is good, but it's competing for slots with a lot of different cards. For me, the 4th Lightning Bolt and the Teferis are more important than the Fire and Ice. But these are like kind of the flex slots of the deck. Fire and Ice is my least favorite card of all of those, and I kind of wanted to focus on these other cards for a little bit. For people that don't know, creativity, the point of the deck is to put a token onto the battlefield, either with Prismari Command, with Dwarven Mine, with Fable the Mirror Breaker, or frankly, flip Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and cast Creativity or Transmogrify on it, where you reveal the top card of your deck, and all the artifacts or creatures revealed this way are, put on the battlefield. Or, excuse me, when you hit an artifact or creature, you put that on the battlefield, being able to put X number of artifacts or creatures on the battlefield. Archon of Cruelty is the only artifact or creature in our deck, so when we Creativity or Transmogrify, Archon of Cruelty is cheated onto the battlefield as early as turn 4. And that's the whole deck. The whole deck is creating space around that, drawing cards around that, and trying to make sure that combo happens as fast as possible. So let's jump into the games. So this opening hand just like isn't super good here in round 1 and in game 1. Literally the only card I can cast is Spell Pierce. This card, this comes in tapped. Like I just don't want this. We mulligan these 7s all day long. Mulligan into this fine hand. Whoops. I accidentally hit the skip to the end of the turn. Now we're keeping 3 lands, Fable, Creativity, Archon. It's a pretty slow hand, but like that's kind of fine. Probably not against Hammer Time though, so at this point I'm a little worried. We just fetch for our Triome, just to give ourselves good mana. Remember, it's a 5-color deck, mostly 4-color deck, but pseudo 5-color deck. Drawing the land is kind of a miss here. Hitting Wrenn and 6 or a Lightning Bolt would have been perfect for the Esper Sentinel. Unfortunately, we're going to take a hit here and then just like try to cast Fable next turn. But they can play Sigarda's Aid. Because they didn't really go for it, it's possible they think I have something, or like, I don't know, like literally anything. But there's a real chance I just die here. There's an argument for leaving up Spell Pierce, but like land Hammer is like, is still going to kill me. So I don't think that's realistic. Unfortunately, if the land we drew last turn was a Spell Pierce and those cards flip-flopped, I think this is a totally different game. I think we just like counter Sigarda's Aid, being able to pay for Esper Sentinel, play Fable, and we're like pretty cleanly in the clear. Unfortunately, that's not the game we have, because in order to keep up with tempo, we have to tap out for Fable the Mirror Breaker and kind of leave ourselves open to dying next turn, and letting our opponents draw a card. But him drawing a card with Horizon Company is really good for us, and he probably would have flashed in the Hammer otherwise. And he taps out, and I have Creativity in my hand. So we attack with the Goblin token, because if you do the math here, if he doesn't double block Esper Sentinels on the Goblin token, what we get to do is just Arid Mesa, Dwarf, get the Dwarf. Now we have 2 creatures and 5 mana, including the treasure, after we attack. So we actually get to get 2 Archons on the battlefield on turn 4, and they're tapped out. So like we just get to do that. If they double block here, like that's totally fine. We get to take out 2 Esper Sentinels and still get our Dwarf with Creativity. Like, them not having anything there is wild for us. Like, we got very, very lucky here. And then we're just going to put 2 Archons on the battlefield. We're like, GG, man. We die in most situations, right? Like, here. I mean, we let him draw 2 cards. It doesn't matter. We have 2 Archons on the battlefield. Like, it's totally fine. And our opponent conceded. I think in most situations where you have a hand like that, we died the turn before the Creativity. You know what I mean? Like they just like jam, slap a hammer on something, and then even if I'm able to like Archon or whatever, like, it doesn't matter. They're just gonna jam it again. Like I think I was dead in most situations there. But we lucked out and won our game 1. This hand's okay. There's not a lot going on in the hand. meh. I decided to keep it. Has a little bit of interaction, has a creativity. It only needs a tiny bit of help, like a Renin 6, or I think I sided out Fable. But not much off the top will be needed to make this hand good. But it's definitely not something I love, obviously. I decided to play a tap land instead of killing the Esper Sentinel. There's not a lot of damage the Esper Sentinel can do, and we can just Lightning Bolt it next turn, or be able to hold the Lightning Bolt for something more important like that. And now we get to now they have Colossus Hammer, so they probably have Sigarda's Aid or that equipment in their hand. Or sorry, that dude that lets things equip for free if you have the thing. I do decide to kill the Stoneforge Mystic, and we pay for Esper Sentinel, so they don't draw a card off of us. The reason we're killing Stoneforge Mystic is that if they have Cauldron Complete or Nettle Cyst, it puts us behind their hand. Playing Gate of River Runes like feels really, really bad, and we just draw Archon. Like we're in all sorts of trouble right now, like so much trouble. Here's Pure Steel Paladin, and they're gonna start bringing the pain. And even though we get to creativity, oh no, we hit Wear and Tear. Okay, sweet. So what's kind of cool about this is if we creativity, what was going, so I'm gonna walk you through this process. If we creativity, what was going to happen is they were going to sack, like, we're going to get like a Archon, they're going to sack like an Ornithopter, they're going to untap, pop Urza Saga, get another Hammer, put Hammer on anything else. We only go up to 10 off of the Archon, and then just jam with both and we die. So we had to Wear and Tear to kill the Hammer and the Urza Saga. So that essentially gets rid of 2 Hammers. 2 Hammers are gone. Like, hopefully that's good enough. Next turn, we'll be able to creativity for 2 and cross our fingers with this. Let's see if it works out. They have Sigarda's Aid, and because they have Sigarda's Aid and they jam with everything, we just block here, and they have another Colossus Hammer, and we just die. But I think we set ourselves up for the best chance to win there, besides maybe the mulligan. Maybe we should have mulliganed that 7 away. But we lose game 2. Going into game 3, this is like a fine opener. I think the unfortunate part is we can't cast Persist. We have no way to get anything in the graveyard, and we don't have a fetch land, but we do have a Leyline Binding. This might be a mulligan as well. I think the reason I'm keeping it is like Renin 6 to kill like the X1s, and then Beseju is like excellent, and we can cast Leyline Binding. Like, it has a ton of interaction. They mulligan to 6. We just play our tap land like we did last game and move on. They just turn 1 Sigarda's Aid, which is a little scary, but we drew the fetch land, which allows us to start profiting off of Renin 6, which is really exciting. And honestly, we're kind of doing pretty okay here. Especially since we can Leyline Binding away this Pure Steel Paladin. If they have no creatures, everything's okay. We're able to Beseju the Sigarda's Aid and then start Beseju looping with Renin 6. And man, Hammer has a really hard time drawing out of this. We even draw the Lightning Bolt. We just keep Beseju looping. He protected his Urza Saga with Blacksmith Skill, but that's okay because we just get to do it next turn, as Blacksmith Skill isn't a card yet. And we're just gonna do it now, like during their upkeep in response to the trigger. They draw a card, play Stoneforge. We're just gonna have Lightning Bolt and keep Beseju looping. Like, it is just this game is so over, like so ridiculously over. It doesn't matter that we haven't done a creativity, and then they just realize that how over it is and just concede. That Beseju loop is just nuts against Hammer Time. It's so good. But we are 1-0 on to round 2 in this prelim. This hand is pretty okay. We only need to draw 1 land to cast the Fable. We have interaction with Lightning Bolt and Spell Pierce and Leyline Binding, depending on what lands we can fetch. So I decided to keep this hand, which is totally okay. I think Mishra's Bauble. So it's probably Murktide. Mishra's, it could be Grinding Station. But we're able to, with a Spell Pierce, Renin 6 is a golden draw. And they don't play anything, so that we're able to play tap land. They shocked in, so they almost definitely have Counterspell. I decide to... I think what happened is here, I went to fetch, and then halfway through fetching, it was like, oh, they definitely just have Counterspell, or they're bluffing it, so I might as well, like... Excuse me. Might as well wait till next turn to cast the Renin 6, see if I draw the land. If I don't draw the land, then I have to go for it, then okay. But if I wait till next turn to Renin 6, if I draw the land, then everything's okay, because I can just protect it with Spell Pierce. It's possible I should have just gone for it anyway, because if I brick and they counter it, I'm miles and miles behind. This situation, though, we just get to attempt attempt to do this. The reason I did not Lightning Bolt the Shredder EOT is that if they had any 1-mana spell, they can just fetch, cast the 1-mana spell, discard it on land, and then the Lightning Bolt fizzles. So I'm not interested in that. However, if I don't have to protect the Wrenn and 6 this turn, I get to, I either spell pierce for the Wrenn and 6 and they get trigger like whoop-de-doo. Or if it resolves, I just get to Lightning Bolt and then there's no way they can double spell, which is beautiful. Here they are. They do attempt to protect, and we can protect back, so we get to resolve the Wrenn and 6 and get a land. And we're actually sitting pretty right now. Things are okay. I did double spell, so there's a Legislator trigger, but that's like fine. It's all good here. They dash the Ragavan, so Wrenn and 6 hits the bin. So that kind of sucks. Oh no, sorry, they went face with it all. So what's beautiful here is, so to kind of realize what's going on here, I think this is 100% a misplay. So he hits the Wrenn and 6. I don't know if I realize they're tapped out, to be totally honest with you. I'm like, I want to deal with everything on the board and move on with my life and blah 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 blah. But I probably should have just land creativity. They're 100% tapped out. But at this point, it's too late. We are just dealing with the Ledger Shredder. We're killing the other creature. I mean, slow rolling to some level here is like fine, but is 100% not playing around the counter magic. Like getting the Archon on the battlefield as fast as possible is probably the most important thing. So I probably should have just creativity there. And now they can protect, and now I have to like play Fable next turn. It's like all really messy and whatever. So that was 100% a mistake, but that's okay. That was a mistake. Drawing the second creativity probably means I can run it out. But playing the Fable is definitely safer, and kind of test the water, is able to leave Leyline Binding up, so it doesn't really matter what they play. But really, we would have an Archon on the battlefield at this point, so like, it's a little bit of feel bad. They play the Ragavan. We're able to Leyline Binding. What's beautiful about this is it like baits a counterspell or Ragavan goes away, which is like kind of funny. But again, Archon would have gotten a trigger. I guess it would have been returned with Brazen Borrower. But we discard the Archon to the Fable. Now we have multiple ways that we want to go about this. We're just kind of taking our time at this point. I decided to Wrenn and 6, just get lands. Let's make this creativity nice and big. We have access to Prismari Command, like, and like my tempo is just like wildly up at the moment. We're able to Prismari Command here. It doesn't really matter what modes we hit here. I decide to just deal 2 damage and make a treasure token because I know I'm creativitying the following turn. Because we just have so much mana. I do leave the 2 mana up for Spell Pierce because it doesn't really matter how much we creativity for 2, and then they concede. But I definitely misplayed by not creativitying earlier. I don't know how much it would have affected the game because they had Brazen Borrower anyway, but it definitely would have affected to some level. But we won game 1. So this opener is fine. There's not a lot of interaction, but the double Planeswalker, double Archon is just kind of like a mulligan to 5. But again, fine. I decided to ship it back because like those 7s, it's really important to keep 7s that really that like actually do stuff. You can keep hands like that at 6 and 5 maybe, but like 7, especially in a combo deck like this, it's important to keep hands that do stuff. This has a reasonable amount of interaction. We put back one of the lands, one of the Planeswalkers. We kind of move on with our life. They play the turn 1 Ragavan. We have the Lightning Bolt answer, which is beautiful. We dream of days like this rather than just dying to Ragavan every single game. It's just like totally miserable and it makes you want to cry. They cast their Consider, don't really do anything, which gives us an opening to just play our tap land. And then we have a couple choices for a turn 3 play, which is a little exciting. You know, they just fetch for their island, which is a little telling, I think. You know, we kind of just are selecting what we want to have countered. We draw the second Teferi. So it's probably that. And it's fine if that's countered. You know, baiting these counter spells is a huge part of this matchup. You know, they play the Dragon's Rage Channeler, and unfortunately we draw this Leyline of the Void. I'm not sure if Leyline is actually good in this matchup, which is kind of interesting. I wanted the Leyline Binding countered a little bit more than Teferi, which is why we led with Leyline Binding. And now they need another Spell Pierce to be able to stop that. However, and something I realized is that getting the Dwarf was pretty important because of the Creativity top deck. Or the Transmog top deck. And like I had to use the white mana for Leyline Binding, which means I couldn't fetch white mana because I already had the Sacred Foundry on the battlefield. So I had to grab Fable. So which meant I need to get the Dwarf. So we're delaying Teferi one turn. Which is fine. You know, they show that they don't have Spell Pierce because that just, I think 100% would have been Spell Pierce. Leyline of the Void is like this weird, dubious kind of card where if we have it in our opener, it's like actually pretty nasty against this deck. But the issue is the way the games play out is if we don't have it in our opener, it is like a dead card. Like it's really important to be able to match all of the, like match our opponent's card quality. And Leyline of the Void has a hard time doing that. I'm really battling with myself with what I should do with Leyline of the Void. Get rid of a Leyline of the Void, decide to keep the Teferis. Especially since we can kind of tempo him out, draw some cards. This Teferi is probably going to bite the dust, to be totally honest. But we need some sick top decks in order to win this game. You know, Teferi bites the dust. So we have the third Teferi in our hand, which is just like really funny. They Murktide Regent. We get some more dwarves. We're just begging for a creativity or a transmogrify. We don't hit again. So we play Teferi number 3. This one eats a counter spell, and that means we're dead. Dead on board. So we just concede. I think it's just a product of just like not being able to find fuel. And we move on to our game 3. In game 3, we have Fable, Lightning Bolt, Leyline Binding, double Leyline of the Void. Leyline of the Void turns off so many cards in our opponent's deck. You know, makes them have a 1-mana 1/1. Makes it so they can literally never cast Murktide Regent. You know, makes it so they can't answer the Archon after it's already on the battlefield with Unholy Heat. Like, I'm really not sure if I want Leyline of the Void. I've been experimenting with it, but it's going to pay off here, definitely. We keep this hand with the ley lines, and we have a ton of interaction and Fable, and we just kind of see what happens here. You know, they turn 1 mana 1/1 for the rest of the game, which is beautiful. It's probably still going to eat this Lightning Bolt. We want to keep the board clear for the most part. Just taking our time, make sure we have good mana because we don't know what land we're going to draw. We do draw a fetch land, which is just awesome. Like, this is such a beautiful thing. I think I was also afraid of like the bait the Lightning Bolt on Dragon's Rage Channeler and then Ragavan, like kind of pseudo combo. I do think this is a misplay to not bolt on my turn because we don't want to give all those surveils. You know, it's really important to keep that in mind. Don't give the surveils. So I definitely should have bolted during my turn, by the way. I think I was just like really like weirdly afraid of Ragavan, but I think I'm still weirdly afraid of Ragavan. I definitely took an extra damage and let them surveil once, or twice. That shouldn't have been a thing. So I'm kind of beating myself up now with that, but that's okay. Tis okay. And then we get a free Fable, the Mirror Breaker, because we know wanted that extra surveil. They're looking for cards. You know, this is going to be like a beautiful discard for us. Let's play the Ledger Shredder in the land. Like, that's fine. You know, we even hit our Spell Pierce. I do decide to discard the land because we don't actually need the land right now because, you know, we have the Goblin stuff going on. You know, and being able to, I just want more interaction. I mean, kind of protect the Goblin with Spell Pierce too, which is really, really cool. You know, being able to, we can creativity a treasure token, like we don't really care about that. And this Fable is going to flip. Being able to Spell Pierce Express Federation is awesome. They Mystical Dispute back, like that's fine. Getting counter magic out of their hand But we still have interaction in Leyline Binding, which we don't actually really even need because they're not going to Murktide Regent us. They're tapped out again, and we're just going to jam in, have our interaction, have our protection. You know, we're doing good. We have all these treasure tokens, you know, which is pretty beautiful. I'm like loving this situation. The expressive, you know, the homie gets unholy heated, like that kind of sucks, but we really don't care. We're just like, come on, need creativity, need transmog, what's going on? Still not hitting, like getting a little like, come on, like really need it here. We have protection with Veil of Summer, and we can hit the treasure token, so like the game is over when we hit Indomitable Creativity. You know, you can't interrupt with killing something when it's a treasure token. The petty theft, I decided to Veil of Summer here, just because it negates the petty theft and means they can't do anything. And then we hit creativity, but they have 2 mana up, so that's a little teensy bit awkward. I kind of regret Veil of Summering the Leyline Binding, which is sorry, the petty theft. Still decided to go for it and see what happens. And they concede. Probably should have just been banking on the petty theft though, or sorry, banking on drawing the creativity though, and like it might have been a misplay to Veil of Summer the petty theft, but it ended up working out. So we are 2-0 in the prelim. Round 3 at 2-0. This hand is beautiful. We dream of hands like this. You know, we have the turn 2 Ren and 6. We have Fables and Prismari commands. If they're like a low to the ground deck, then it's like, you know, probably bad for us. Our opponents do mulligan to 4, which helps us out. So that's pretty dope. On Stomping Ground, you know, we're able to hit up our Ren and 6. You know, we even have access to Spell Pierce. We have Ren and 6 online and doing its thing. You know, we're just playing this game patient, which is beautiful. It's possible, you know, supposed to shock Fable there, but I'm still unsure what I'm playing against. It's like probably Rhinos or something. We even hit our creativity. You know, there's no real reason to like be fast about this. Let's just like take our time, play out our stuff, be able to creativity for a bunch and protect it. Okay, so it's obviously Rhinos, so we just Spell Pierce. You know, for our sweet interaction. They probably untap and do it again and just hope it's good enough. And there it is. Called it. So the first thing, they were probably going to force of negation us. If they had it, they would have forced a negation. But we did draw an Archon and discard it to Fable, which is just hilarious. So we're able to transmog our Archon, and then next turn we can persist the Archon in the graveyard, which is like actually just super disgusting. I don't really care about blocking. I don't want to attack with the Archon, and they concede. They conceded that. I think it was in a winning position no matter what though, but. That was a nasty Moldafor by then, to be totally honest. But 1 game 1. This hand's pretty okay. You know, we have the Spell Pierce backup. We have Ren and 6. We have Teferi. If we can get Teferi out, unfortunately we're on the draw, but if we can get Teferi out early on, it's obviously insane against Cascade decks. I seriously doubt we'll be able to get Teferi out early on, so we're gonna have to protect with Spell Pierce pretty hard. We even hit the creativity, so maybe it's okay if they do it on turn 3 if we're able to creativity, you know, 2 turns later, or whatever. Doesn't really matter that they tap down our Triome, but it definitely means they're going to sort of be going for it. However, they missed their 3rd land drop, which is unbelievable for us. Like, that's like primo plus, everything's actually wonderful. We just play the Ren and 6 so we can continue leaving Spell Pierce up, and then next turn, we either get to creativity or... Teferi, leaving Spell Pierce up, which is both very, very, very beautiful plays. Totally awesome. Had too many cards in hand because they petty thefted us, so we get to put Archon in our graveyard. So now if we draw Persist, it's disgusting. I did have to Play the fetch land instead of a Dwarven Mine to protect the Teferi. You know, they just flash in. Like, fine. I just plus, move on with my life. You know, we still can protect with Spell Pierce. In hindsight, I probably should have fetch shocked before all of this, because now they get to kind of play some games here. There's a total possibility of, like, in response to that fetch land, they would have done it. Or I guess I'm tapped out now, so they can do it now if they want to. But they're in a ridiculous amount of trouble at this point. I now get to creativity with Spell Pierce backup, and the game is pretty much over. Yeah, it didn't even need the Spell Pierce. You know, we're just here, and they concede. And so now we are 3-0, going for the 4-0 in the prelim. This hand's frankly very good. Like, has interaction and Lightning Bolt. We're able to hit our land drops to red and 6. You know, we have Fable the Mirror Breaker. Like, love this for us. They reveal Kahira. So it's probably an Omnath deck. Turn 1 Island, which probably signals Spell Pierce, but we're going to go for it anyway. You know, if they have Spell Pierce on Ren and 6, then, you know, we can resolve a Fable. However, that doesn't happen. So we we're just going to try to bury him now. They did have Counterspell, though. They did Counterspell the Fable. That's fine. However, if they're a Kahira deck and an Omnath deck, keeping Otawara Island is really interesting. Like being a 4-color deck and then keeping Island Otawara. So that's an interesting keep. And we're just able to bury our opponent through this. You know, we discard our lands. You know, Red and 6 Fable the Mirror Breaker, our best buddies forever. XOXO. So now we're just like kind of just waiting for a Transmog or creativity. You know, they play the dress down. We don't really care about the dress down. They're just trying to hit lands, and then they concede. So cool. Did it. So in game 2, this is an okay hand. You know, it has creativity, ways to protect it. Doesn't have a lot of interaction directly besides Spell Pierce, but Spell Pierce is okay. You know, in the face of like Counterspell. Play the fetch land in case we do need to Spell Pierce. You know, and that's fine. And yeah, so they are the 4-color deck, you know, with Kahira, the kept Island Otawara, which is okay. I mean, it is what it is. We're able to grab our Triome as well. You know, we're able to draw some more interaction, so things are shaping up a little bit. Definitely way less of a dominant hand than game 1, but that's okay. Totally okay. They tried a Teferi. We're able to counterspell it. You know, which is just great. You know, being able to do that during our turn and not have, or during my opponent's turn and not have to worry about it. However, we don't have any more interaction now besides Leyline Binding, and neither do they. Drawing the Fable is beautiful because it means we can Fable, bait out a counterspell, be able to protect it with a Veil, and they don't have a counterspell. So now we know they don't have a counterspell. If we draw a land, we just get to you know, creativity for 1,000,000. Like, everything is awesome. You know, we get this Fable trigger. Like, this is like really, really an incredible time for us. You know, we're just an embarrassment of riches at this point. Unfortunately, we don't hit a land off of that. We really wanted a land to be able to protect as well. But now we can kind of like take our time, right? We can play our red and 6, hit our land drops. We're not under any pressure, so I get to decide when I want to engage in playing Magic, right? Which means we get to draw, like, you know, hit a dwarf here. You know, and now if we hit a land, now we get to creativity for 2 with Veil of Summer up. And the game's pretty much over. They need double removal spell, double counter spell, or a counter spell pierce. Like, it's yeah, the game's over. You know, GG. They attempt to counter spell. We have Veil of Summer. They need exactly spell pierce. Spell pierce doesn't happen, and then we hit our double Archon. And sure. So this was kind of interesting. Not Leyline Binding. So okay. So this is like another small mistake. There's no reason to not, just for future reference, it's purely educational. You can Leyline Binding and Solitude the tokens, right? So these triggers never needed to go off, right? If he had Leyline Binding Solitude, he should Leyline Binding. He should see that counterspell is getting Veil Summered, right? You know, whatever. Don't care. Leyline Binding the Dwarf, Solitude the Dwarf, and then I only gain 1 life. You don't have a Leyline Binding, an Archon under a Leyline Binding that I can just get back with this Leyline Binding in my hand. And these triggers don't go off. So that was you know, that was a small mistake as well. You know, and now we just draw another creativity. Like, they have one card in hand. We just spend 1 mana to cast Leyline Binding, and we just, like, can Veil of Summer again. We have double creativity. Right? Like, we just got an embarrassment of riches at that point. But we did 4-0, which is, like, feels really good. The last round felt kind of cheap, to be totally honest. But, I mean, the creativity deck is kind of cheap and really unforgiving for our opponents in making mistakes, similar to the Hammer Time deck, right? If you like this video, if you want to see more videos like this, I mean, just kind of coaching through events, especially if you like creativity, it's one of my primary decks right now. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.